Hello everyone, in this video we're going to imagine a scenario where King Kong was in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah instead of King Ghidorah. Originally, King Kong was supposed to be in the 1991 film but was scrapped due to licensing costs. Instead, Godzilla fights King Ghidorah, but what if he had fought Kong instead? For this scenario, I'm going to use the King Kong from the 1976 film King Kong. Additionally, I'm going to keep the story similar to 1991's Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, but with some tweaks since it's King Kong instead of King Ghidorah. Hope you enjoy! A submarine discovers the body of a seemingly lifeless ape kaiju at the bottom of the sea off the coast of Hokkaido. It's revealed that the monster's name is King Kong and he fought Godzilla at the end of the 20th century. One night, an enormous unidentified flying object is observed at various points over Japan. Media outlets attempt to explain the strange events that occurred the next day. Interestingly, Terasawa, a sci-fi writer, has no interest in the events that transpired last night. Instead, he heads out to a museum to speak to an old man protesting a dinosaur exhibit. The old man tells a story about his garrison and the American attack at Lagos Island in 1944. Terasawa leans in with interest. The old man speaks of a mighty dinosaur that saved the garrison and fended the Americans away. The old man cautioned that the dinosaur wasn't protecting the garrison, he was defending his island. Terasawa thinks about the story the old man told him and hypothesizes that this dinosaur was exposed to radioactive fallout from the H-bomb test in 1954, irradiating the creature and transforming it into Godzilla. Interestingly, the garrison's leader was Yasuke Shindo, who is now the present head of the Teo Group, a massive corporation. Terasawa reaches out to Shindo, who at first denies seeing a dinosaur. Pressed by Terasawa, Shindo reveals that his garrison was in fact saved by a dinosaur and provides photographs. Meanwhile, the JSDF tracks the UFO movements over the Pacific Ocean and see that the ship visited Godzilla. Godzilla has been dormant in the Sea of Japan for 2 years and is still weakened for both the anti-nuclear energy bacteria and his battle with Biollante. The UFO lands near Mount Fuji and the inhabitants introduce themselves to the Japanese government. They are Westerners Wilson and Glenn and a Japanese woman from Japan named Emi. All three are from the year 2204 and have traveled through time to warn Japan of its grave future. They explain that due to industrialization and nuclear power, Godzilla will reappear and destroy Japan once and for all. As proof, the Futurians provide a book written by Terasawa in the future titled The Birth of Godzilla. The government agrees to cooperate with the Futurians, who devise a plan to go back to Lagos Island in 1944 and erase Godzilla from history. They hypothesize that if they take the dinosaur off the island, it won't be exposed to the H-bomb and thus won't mutate into Godzilla. The Futurians invite Terasawa, Miki Sagusa, and Professor Mizaki to join Emi and the Futurians android M11 on the mission to Lagos. Interestingly, a baby gorilla named Kong is also along for the trip. Emi exclaims that he is supposed to provide companionship as the group travels through time. The team from 1992 successfully arrives on Lagos and observes a battle between the Japanese and American forces. The Japanese garrison is overwhelmed and almost defeated by the Americans. Inadvertently, the battle disturbs the dinosaur that is believed to eventually mutate into Godzilla. Angry, the dinosaur attacks the American troops while the Japanese troops retreat. The dinosaur makes its way to the shore but is gravely injured by battleships that fire in the distance. The dinosaur kills the last of the Americans as Mickey positively identifies the dinosaur as Godzilla. The time travelers prepare for teleportation and go forward 1 week to when the Japanese garrison departs the island. As the travelers prepare to move the Godzillasaurus, they witness Lieutenant Shindo tearfully say goodbye to the monster, who he says saved his life. M11 teleports the Godzillasaurus to the bottom of the Bering Sea. As the team gets ready to time warp back to 1992, Emi reluctantly releases the gorilla Kong onto the island. Having cared for Kong for many years, Emi looks back at Kong for a brief moment, knowing she will miss him. When the team returns and it's confirmed that the mission was successful and Godzilla has disappeared, Glenn, however, reveals that while Godzilla is gone, a new monster named King Kong has appeared in the Pacific Ocean and is swimming towards Japan. One night, King Kong arrives in Fukuoka and wades out of the water onto shore. He roars and then begins to destroy everything in his path. Kong smashes buildings, laying waste to the area. People flee for their lives as King Kong rampages throughout the city. Explosions go off as King Kong walks through the city, crushing building after building. After utterly destroying Fukuoka, King Kong heads to Kyushu. King Kong fights with the JSDF in the countryside, but the military is unable to stop Kong's advance. King Kong absolutely destroys the JSDF and moves on to Kyushu. King Kong smashes buildings and throws cars. A nearby train is stopped by King Kong, who proceeds to throw the train at some buildings. King Kong tears down more buildings and then lets out a loud roar. The roar is so powerful that it damages surrounding buildings. Large explosions go off as King Kong rampages throughout Kyushu, destroying everything in sight. While the government struggles to understand the connection between King Kong and Godzilla, Mickey concludes that King Kong must have been created when the baby gorilla Kong was left behind by Emmy on Lagos Island. Kong was subjected to the nuclear test, which mutated him, thus implicating the Futurians in the monster's rampage. Emmy watches King Kong's rampage throughout Japan in horror and heartbreak. What happened to the friendly gorilla that she had once cared for, she wondered. Emmy pleads with Wilson and Glenn to stop and leave Kong alone, but they continue the rampage. Feeling remorseful, Emmy finds Terasawa and comes clean about the true nature of the Futurians' visit. She explains that in the future, Japan becomes a world superpower, and over time the nation becomes so corrupt and wealthy that it's able to purchase entire countries and continents. To counteract Japan's domination, people united around the world to create the Equal Environment Earth Union. Emmy, Wilson, and Glenn are part of this organization and devised a plan to steal the time machine, create King Kong to extort the 20th century Japan, and prevent the country's future ascent. The story about Godzilla was a lie to force the Japanese people to cooperate. Now Emmy feels that Wilson and Glenn have gone too far and are simply using King Kong to destroy Japan. Feeling a connection with Kong since she cared for him for many years, Emmy asks Terasawa to help her free Kong from the Futurians' control. After destroying Kyushu, King Kong arrives in Kobe and begins toppling buildings left and right. Large explosions go off everywhere as King Kong roams through the city, destroying everything. King Kong smashes buildings with his fists. King Kong rips apart buildings with his bare hands. Kobe turns into a sea of flames as King Kong continues his rampage. The Japanese government decides to mutate the Godzilla source in the Bering Sea into Godzilla to defeat King Kong and the Futurians. Despite protests, Shinjo's Teo group provides a submarine armed with nuclear warheads for Operation G. Yet Mickey claims she can sense Godzilla, not the Godzilla source at the bottom of the sea, hinting that perhaps Godzilla isn't gone after all. In the meantime, Terasawa discovers that a nuclear submarine had previously disappeared in the Bering Sea where the Godzilla source had been transported. Confirming Mickey's findings, Terasawa realizes that this accident must have mutated the dinosaur. Satellite images confirm the existence of the 80-meter Godzilla where Mickey had sensed him. But before they can warn the government and save King Kong from the Futurians' control, Godzilla destroys the submarine and grows even larger in size and strength. Newly energized, Godzilla comes ashore in Hokkaido. Wilson and Glenn realize that the birth of Godzilla was unavoidable in the 20th century and they send King Kong to fight Godzilla. Godzilla and King Kong meet and battle in Sapporo. The monsters decimate the city as they make their way towards one another. King Kong and Godzilla trade devastating blows in the middle of Sapporo. Godzilla fires his atomic breath. Kong dodges it. Godzilla's atomic breath hits a city block instead, obliterating it. Eventually, King Kong gains the upper hand and starts to gravely injure Godzilla. Hundreds of miles away on the Futurians' UFO, Emmy, a reprogrammed M11, and Terasawa sabotage the monster control device to free Kong so he can attempt to escape. Meanwhile, back in Sapporo, King Kong throws a train at Godzilla and pummels him hard into the ground. Godzilla falls down hard and the street collapses under his weight. With the controlling device destroyed, King Kong becomes confused. Godzilla takes advantage of this opportunity and pummels the uncontrolled King Kong. Critically injured, King Kong attempts to get away, but Godzilla gravely injures Kong with his supercharged atomic breath. Nearby the ocean, King Kong climbs a tall skyscraper to get away, but Godzilla fires his atomic breath again. The building is destroyed and crashes down to the ground. Kong's body is violently hurled into the ocean. His lifeless body floats out to sea and eventually sinks off the coast of Hokkaido. Godzilla turns his attention back to the city of Sapporo and rampages throughout the city, decimating the remains. Godzilla battles with Maser tanks, but they are no match for him. Godzilla fires his atomic breath and knocks down Sapporo Tower. After utterly destroying Sapporo, Godzilla heads out into the countryside. Emmy, M11, and Terasawa manage to escape the Futurian UFO in a smaller time transport ship. They quickly zap the Futurian UFO to Godzilla's location in the countryside. Confused, Godzilla quickly obliterates the UFO with his atomic breath, killing Glenn and Wilson. The JSDF attempts to engage Godzilla in the countryside but are no match for his atomic breath. After a few days, M11 runs computer simulations that indicate Godzilla will not stop until he strikes Tokyo. Emmy suggests returning to her time to use 23rd technology to revive King Kong to defend 20th century Japan. Emmy believes this plan will not only stop Godzilla but also redeem King Kong in the process. In the meantime, Godzilla reaches and begins to obliterate Tokyo. Godzilla marches down city blocks, destroying everything in his path. In the midst of his rampage, Godzilla turns and sees Shindo in one of the skyscrapers. The two make eye contact and share a moment. Ready to accept his fate, Shindo is then killed by Godzilla's atomic breath. Godzilla rampages throughout the Shinjuku district, tearing down any building in his path. In the midst of his rampage, the sky flashes in the distance as Emmy arrives from the future. Thankfully, Emmy's mission was a success. Thanks to the cold ocean waters, King Kong's heart and body were preserved and remained alive long enough for Emmy's government to convert it into the cybernetic being Mechani-Kong. Now with the new mechanical body and weapon upgrades, Mechani-Kong marches into Shinjuku. Godzilla and Mechani-Kong, controlled by Emi, battle in the heart of Shinjuku. Mechani-Kong launches missiles as Godzilla fires his atomic breath back. The two go back and forth, but Godzilla's atomic breath proves to be strong against Mechani-Kong's armor. Eventually, after some back and forth, Emi launches Mechani-Kong's Godzilla grip system that ensnares Godzilla in grappling cables. Mechani-Kong begins to head out towards Tokyo Bay. Just as Mechani-Kong makes it to Tokyo Bay, Godzilla fires his atomic breath, causing both monsters to fall into the ocean. Godzilla breaks free and swims away. Mechani-Kong sinks to the bottom of Tokyo Bay. Before escaping, Emi gives a heartfelt goodbye to Kong. Thanks to the smaller time transport, Emi escapes and flies out of Tokyo Bay. Before leaving, Emi bids farewell. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments. See you in the next one, G-fans.